Parliament, Bernadette. It's great to be here. And so for me, it's an evening of partly of nostalgia. I have many people who come up and tonight, as I've gone through the crowd and said, you know, remember me, and Sid admitted that he ran for me in 1995. I'm sure he doesn't want to broadcast that. But Brother Lomley and I served in Parliament together. I was a needling young MP when Ed was already a very distinguished member of Parliament and future cabinet minister and such an important part of the life of the country and the life of Canada. And it's been wonderful to have so many of you come over and tell me stories reminding me of when I've been here before and when we've been together. But above all, I'm looking around the room and particularly conscious of the words that Bernadette said, is that, you know, we're looking for inspiration. I'll do my best. I have some thoughts for people about where we are as a party, where the Liberal Party finds itself, and some of the challenges that we face. And I was joking with Ed. I said, you know, as a former New Democrat, you know, somebody says you're 26%. That's, for a New Democrat, that's a high number. I mean, that's not a bad number. It's 20 in the 20s, okay? We work from there. But to be serious for a moment, we have to understand some things about how the world has changed around us. And the funny thing is, coming back into Parliament, I was first elected in 1978, which is 30 years ago. More than 30 years ago, and you know, when I was in the House of Commons, and at the end of this month, we're going to be celebrating and roasting Premier Davis, who was my opponent when I started out in provincial politics, and he has become over the years one of my closest friends, and I know that Ed feels the same way. And the first thing I have to say to everybody in this room is that the Conservative Party that we're facing in the House of Commons today is not the Conservative Party that I used to know and that we all used to know. It isn't. It's the Reform Party by another name. That's what it is. And we shouldn't pretend anything else. It's such a curious phenomenon that I see. It's sort of like, I said this in a speech in the House of Commons the other day, it's sort of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know the story, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Robert Louis Stevenson. We all grew up reading the story. Many of us have seen various movies about it. You know, the dedicated scientist is a very decent individual, and Dr. Jekyll, and then he sort of drinks the magic potion, and then all of a sudden he becomes this awful other person. Mr. Hyde, who, you know, has a whole other horrible life in the nether streets of London. That's what we have as a government. You know, they stand up, the Prime Minister standing, whenever you ask him a question, you notice this, it's when he's not playing the piano. And I appreciated Bernadette's comment. I mean, I'm prepared to have a piano duel with anytime, pick your piano, pick your spot. I'll be there, 2 pianos at midnight, whatever it is. Ready to go, ready to fight. He always gets up and he bumps up and he looks very good speaker. And he gives us a little answer. And the answer always is, well, you know, we're doing this and da-da-da, we're not going to have an irresponsible election. He sits down. Then I go home at night, you know, question period. I go home at night, turn on my television, and I see these nasty ads, these horrible ads. But first of all, they were the ads for Mr. Dion, then they're the ads for Mr. Ignatieff. They're always trying to portray in one way or another. They're very negative, they're very hostile, they're kind of brutal. They have lots of things coming at you all the time. They're very professional, they're very tough. Bang, 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 over. So what was that? And you say to yourself, there's not an election going on. Then you say to yourself, yes, there is. This party across the way is campaigning, as in this electioneering, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. That's what they do. They don't actually govern, they campaign. That's the Republican style. And if you cross over the border, I know it takes a little longer now than... when you cross over the border and watch their politics, that's what you see. Now, when I was a kid growing up, you know, you had liberal Republicans. Republicans like Jacob Javits from New York, and we had all sorts of liberal Republicans. We used to watch them, and Henry Cabot Lodge and all those fine liberal Republican figures. They're all gone. And they've been replaced by this very hard, right-wing Republican phenomenon that we've seen that led to the election of President Bush. Well, actually not the election, the choosing of President Bush by the Supreme Court of the United States. Because he didn't win the first election.
That's right.
And that's the phenomenon that we're seeing with Mr. Harper. We have to understand, and I just think we have to remind Canadians about what is the nature of the choice of the politics that we're facing. And the second thing is to say to everyone, we have our work cut out for us. Because the only way these people know how to campaign is to spend tons of money